All set, Lynn. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Energy Utilities and Technology. My name is Melanie Sachs, proud to be House Chair of EUT and represent the wonderful community of Freeport in the main house. We will do committee introductions. We'll start here to my right.
Happy Thursday, everyone. My name is Nathan Wadsworth. I represent House District 82, Southern Oxford County.
Good afternoon. My name is Kilton Webb. I represent House District 98.
Good afternoon. My name is Reagan Paul. I represent House District 37, Waldo County.
Good afternoon. My name is Sophie Warren, and I'm fortunate to represent a small but mighty portion of Scarborough Main House.
Hi there, Nicole Grahowski, Senate District 7, 22 communities in Hancock and Knox County.
Hi, Chris Kessler, District 121, representing part of South Portland and a smidgen of Cape Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Foster, representing District 32, which includes the towns of Dexter, Gowan, Charleston, Exeter, Stetson, and a part of Bradford.
Good afternoon, Representative Valley Geiger, District 42. I represent the city of Rockland, most of the town of Owl's Head, and the islands of North Haven, Cree Haven, Matinicus, and the Muscle Ridge.
Good afternoon, Matthew McIntyre. I will skip my 16 towns and just say I'm happy to be here because as of 4 hours ago, I am now a great uncle to two twin boys, one of which might have red hair.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Runte and I represent District 146 in York County.
How lovely. Thank you for sharing, and our congratulations to you, Representative. Great. So we have a few language reviews today. I wanted to just also note for the committee, you will see that the Vinyl Haven water bill, I think it's 2234, is still in the Senate. We do not yet have it in our possession, so we are not going to be able to schedule it until it does get referred to committee as in our possession. But please know we will do our best to schedule it for late next week, as well as confirmation hearings. So we will be setting a schedule for you all for next week. So just wanted to make that known. As always, we are joined by our wonderful analyst, Lindsay Laxon, and our amazing clerk, Lynn Lacroix. Okay, just 2 language reviews, Lindsay, is that correct?
Sadly, only 2 today. I was
Okay,
hoping for
we'll
a
do
few
it.
more, but
We'll
we'll work
get
with what we
there.
got.
Thank you so much.
Certainly. So shall we get started? Let's start with LD 2220. This is an act to establish the Maine Home Energy Navigator and Coaching Resource Hub. It was ought to pass as amended, but really ought to pass. And then the amendment was to incorporate the fiscal note. So the green packet you've got here provides the original bill. And then if you turn the page, you've got the fiscal note and the voting sheet. So this is more of an FYI because there's nothing on here that should be super surprising to anyone. This is one-time funding of $100,000.
Right. So we will not see this again, even though it's green.
Correct. This will
Okay.
get reported out. Yes.
So committee, any questions for those on the majority report? Just the fiscal note added, confirming what was in the bill. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
that will be reported out today for next week on the calendar.
Probably won't be reported out today, but it will be reported out as soon as possible.
Thank you so much.
All
Next.
right. And the next one is LD 2140. This was a divided report or ought not to pass, and then minority report ought to pass as amended. So this is the minority report. In final form, this is resolved to establish a behavioral demand response pilot program to lower electric bills and improve grid reliability. And so we don't have the fiscal note on this yet, but I wanted to bring back the language just for those on this report to see if you had any questions.
Thank you. And as I do, I get requests from time to time from different committee members to perhaps reconsider a bill. I am not on the majority report for this. So this would, if there is going to be a reconsideration, that motion would have to come from somebody on the majority report in order for a reconsideration to happen. So I will say, as a minority report person, I'm fine with this language. There was 3 of us on that, and I'm fine with that. But I will also entertain any other motions or discussions as one does in this committee. Representative Webb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like the motion for reconsideration.
Okay, just double checking, seeing that you are on the majority, would like to vote motion to reconsider. Is there a second? And Representative Warren was also there. So we have a motion from folks on the majority. Everyone on the committee is available to vote on that motion. Motion is to reconsider 2140. All those in favor of reconsideration of 2140, please raise your hands. I'm fine to do so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, the motion prevails. So, opening up a work session for 2140, which is an act to reduce household energy costs in response to federal cuts. And I am going to turn this over to Senator Grahowski, for whom the request was asked.
Thank you very much, Representative Sachs. So, I wasn't present for the discussion or the vote on this bill, just for full transparency. And I felt that the bill, did have a lot of promise to it. And so I had, sort of just taken it upon myself to see if maybe I could make some improvements that had been suggested in the public, hearing, you know, at the interest of other committee members. And by saying I mean me working with Senator Jepler, as well as Efficiency Maine Trust, NRCM, and the utilities. The language that you're looking at, I'm sorry, this is, there are more changes to it than are shown in this particular track change versions from the original version that you are looking at in your green sheet. So do not look at these changes as if they are the only changes from the, pink sheet. They were just the most recent changes within an internal thing. And I maybe sent the wrong version to Lindsay. My apologies. It's okay. Oh, did you print something out? Can we see that? That's the clean copy. I think. Yeah, it's all the same language. There's just a clean version that I was anticipating being on my desk, not a red line version. It is because I'm sorry. Could we see it, please? I'm sorry. My apologies for the confusion. Excellent. Yes, this is a version that has the track changes incorporated, so it's just a little easier to read it, I think. On top of so backing up from the version control question. I really appreciate the collaboration to, I think, put some finer details into the proposed program. You'll notice sort of a broader approach to demand management in this version from the pink copy that was what we had voted. And I think the only other thing I would add is that there's sort of a little more clarity around the utility participation. I did not get a copy. Oh, thank you. And that's all. I just think it's worth reading the clean copy from top to bottom and see if you like it or not. That's what I would propose.
Yeah, good question of you, Senator, if you could. So obviously I was on the minority report passing the last one. I do see, as I'm reading this on the fly, that behavioral is gone, that this is just demand response. I actually, as a clinician, really appreciate that. But also, are there other changes? It looks like you said this track changes one. Sounds like you worked with the utilities to make sure that it worked. Are there other salient changes to address maybe some of the concerns of the people who are on the majority report?
Yes, so there were other track changes that aren't visible. So there were some changes, I think, around the broader outreach and education campaign. So if you look at section 2 in the pink sheet, you can see that there's a sort of focus on residential electricity customers. In this version, it is broader to all customers. And I think that's because there's certainly a lot of benefit that can be gained to all of us by any customer reducing their peak demand. So that's, I would say, a bigger change. Within the collaboration section, section 4, that is new. I believe, let's see. No, not new. It is improved. To
to include, working with the public interest organizations, including but not limited to community action agencies. I think that was feedback that we heard in the public hearing around getting more information from the folks that are working directly with people who are economically disadvantaged that might really benefit from a program like this, but not maybe easily find information about the program. So just ensuring that there's more input there. And then there's also language around the utilities, basically helping to deliver information about the program and ensuring that Efficiency Maine Trust has the data that it needs to assess the program participation. And that way, Efficiency Maine is doing the bulk of the work that they have the information that they need. And the goal of that is to ensure that we not see increased ratepayer costs because the utilities are doing the analysis. The other, I think, salient change from the public hearing and previous bill language was that the program, instead of being proposed as a pilot, is proposed to be ongoing, but using the standard EMT triennial plan process. You'll see at that first section 1 there, that last sentence says, determine the program shall last through the end of fiscal year 2028, may be extended at the discretion of the trust if it's approved in the triennial plan and meets all of those additional requirements. And so that's a difference from the original being proposed as a pilot that would have a certain end. This would allow it to continue if it's working. And hopefully I captured all the comments, but I would thank NRCM and Efficiency Maine Trust for taking the first real look at how to tighten this up, and then the utilities for collaborating on how they could best be partners in implementation.
Representative Rente. Question or discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, you've taken a bill that was narrowly focused on a single program that was doing the time of use rate for low-income customers, essentially, and using the existing time of use rates. And now it's create a broader, like an umbrella program, a demand response program in Efficiency Maine, where one of the elements of it is something similar to what was described in the original bill. What I'm wondering about is establishing this demand response program. Certainly it would ultimately have more elements in it than just communication outreach on time of use rates for a segment of customers. How might other programs be developed within the demand response program? Do they need to come back as single recommendations to build on the demand response program that this bill does? Or is this basically authorization for Efficiency Maine to go do more than just the outreach?
I'm happy. Are you asking the sponsor, or would you like Efficiency Maine to come up and answer that question?
Right. Well, the sponsor first, I think, just in terms of the bill language.
Sponsor. And you can phone a friend if you prefer. Oh, the sponsor. That's right. Thank you. Hello,
Hi,
Senator Tepler. Welcome.
thank
Forgive
you.
me. Yes.
I'm Senator Denise Tepler, representing Senate District 24, which is all of Saginaw County and the town of Dresden and Lincoln County. And thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. To answer your question, Representative Rente, it was NRCM that felt that this was ready for a full-on program, not just a pilot. And they made the suggestions to turn this into the broader program. The outreach and education piece is still supposed to be focused on low-income customers, and particularly renters. And that is what I think the focus still is. It's just available as the TOU rates are available. to all customers. Does that answer your question adequately?
Well, when I think of demand response programs, it goes beyond time of use rate communications. And there's a number of programs that Efficiency Man is already doing.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering about, by setting this up, what's the mechanism or process for a different program coming up that would be part of the demand response program? Are they now, is Efficiency Man now allowed to just pursue that, or does it have to come back to us?
I believe that it does allow them to pursue it in the sense that it requires some cooperation from the utilities in providing the data. And that is the major need for the legislation, although the utilities have assured Mr. Stoddard that they would be happy to provide that data. It's still, that's what's embedded in the bill that gives them the ability to create the program.
Other questions for the sponsor? Representative Warren.
Thank you so much for your work on this. I wanted to ask about the changes to Section 3. It looked like the bill as previously written was prioritizing outreach and participation for low-income electricity customers, as well as two other categories. Those categories are still there, but it now says the outreach and education must be designed to reach these customers. That seems less to be about prioritizing low-income electricity customers or renters than the previous language. So could you clarify, do you see that differently? Or otherwise, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do see that differently. It came again from NRCM, those changes. And I think that it is intended to be very similar to the previous language, but that the design of the program must reach out to low-income folks. I think that's the big difference, is it's not just for low-income folks, but it's designed specifically to reach them.
Follow.
And then the second part about customers having the greatest potential for peak demand electricity usage reductions. My impression, just to clarify, that probably would not be low-income users. It's probably we're talking about I guess industrial users or something. Or could you clarify? No,
No, I don't think that's the intention at all. I believe the intention is that it's for low-income customers who have the most to gain from small reductions in their electricity usage. So, for a big company, $150 a month in savings would be virtually meaningless. But for an individual who's living paycheck to paycheck, $150 or even $50 in monthly savings on their electricity bill would make a huge difference.
Follow, Representative Warren.
So I mean, I hear that. That's my personal feeling, but it looks like it's targeting customers having the greatest potential for peak demand electricity usage reduction, not the greatest relative impact of saving costs or anything like that.
I think the intention was that that's an expansion with a comma. It's an expansion on low-income electricity customers. I think that was the intention of the rest of the sentence, not to be a separate list. Yeah. That's my understanding, but nope, I'm sorry. So I will allow Mr. Stoddard to answer that question, because I thought that was the focus, and I may be incorrect. So I will.
Representative, I was going to say, would you like to follow up with the sponsor before we invite anybody else up? Representative Warren?
So that is your intent, though.
That is my intent.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. That's great.
Thank you.
Representative Warren, would you like to hear from Mr. Stoddard, Director of UMT? Or any, I see nods, if he would like to come up. Director Stoddard. So Representative Warren, is that the same question we'd like to start with? Okay. Mr. Stoddard.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Michael Stoddard. I'm the Executive Director of the Efficiency Maine Trust. Appreciate the opportunity to chime in today on this review of 2140. I think what this change in language is trying to do is recraft this so that by shifting it from pilot, which was what the original draft suggested, to a quote unquote program, a sort of a steady state thing, it would be open to many more people. And so the language that was in the original pilot made several references to a subset of all residential customers. It was going to focus on a sample, which is what you do in a pilot. You don't scale up all the administrative costs that would be associated and all the communications costs that would be associated with trying to reach all Mainers who are eligible, who are residential and can theoretically take advantage of the utilities time of use rates right now. It would just focus on certain subsets. And so when the proposal was made to change it from not being a pilot anymore, but to being a full program, as you may know from my testimony at the hearing, we already do offer a demand response program for industrial and commercial customers. So we have something already in place for that. What we don't have is something for residential customers. And so even though this doesn't specify residential, I think that is the missing link right now in who is getting actively reached out to about the opportunity to shift to off-peak and take advantage of the time of use rates. So that's my vision of mostly what's going to happen from this. But I think we thought that since it was going to be a program, the language should reflect that it's open to everybody, and it's in everyone's best interest. Literally everyone on the grid that is paying for the grid should want as many people as possible to take advantage of the time of use rates and to engage in this practice of shifting their usage to off-peak. So we wouldn't want to limit it to just low-income customers. We'd want everyone who can take advantage of it to do so, because that's in all ratepayers' best interest. So we're just trying to make the language reflect that. So it may not have been the most artful drafting, but we just wanted to be clear that we would recommend that the program be available to everybody. We think it's still valuable to, and we understood that the committee wanted to send a signal to us that you want us to make sure that we include people who may be harder to reach. So not just the low hanging fruit, but people who may need extra education and outreach, who may need extra encouragement. So that's, I think, what that language that you see in section 3 was intended to do. But we were also trying to reflect the fact that this is no longer a pilot dealing with a subset of a few hundred or a few thousand customers. This would be for all residential customers in the IOU territories.
A follow-up, Representative Warren.
So I had understood that this was going to be, if not exclusively, primarily for low-income people and perhaps renters, in so far as that's a relationship there. And my understanding was that to sort of crack the nut of like how to reach folks and the various intersections of issues around energy usage and insulation and different upgrades in appliances, XYZ, that was the goal or intention around this. So reaching those communities and achieving the greatest net benefit in relation to affordability, that I thought was what this was going to do. It looks like it's trying to do a variety of things that are a bit different and broader. I guess I just wanted to confirm that that would be your understanding as well of the bill as it is now.
If what you're asking is my understanding that this gives us greater latitude to sort of go out and pursue a broader range of customers and a broad range of ways of advancing demand response, including primarily through time of use, getting people to move to time of use, but not exclusively. I think the language says as a part of the pilot program, there would be that campaign. But it doesn't say that that's the only part of the campaign or the program. So if I can circle back to Representative Runte's original question, I would hope that this doesn't set a precedent that every program we design needs to get reviewed and approved by this committee, because I think that would really slow things down. And so if what I took from this was that the committee is saying, we really want you to fill this gap in offerings, which is that demand management programs are available for commercial and industrial customers, but not for residential. We'd like you to add that to your repertoire. And I think that would be sufficient, and I think that would be a good thing. I think it would be a real missed opportunity to just limit it to one subset of residential customers, because by shifting people's consumption from peak periods to off-peak periods, if the more of us that do that and the more we do that, the more ratepayer savings there will be. So it wouldn't make a ton of sense to scale up a program to get the word out about that opportunity and then limit it only to certain customers. I think we'd like to make it available to all residential customers. Obviously recognizing that what Section 3 is asking is to make sure that we pay extra attention to customers that are either low income or renters or have the greatest potential for usage reductions.
Additional question, Representative Warren?
Yeah, I thought that to reach that population would take a lot of additional work and input, because they can be the hardest to reach, and the various intersections of need in order so that they can truly benefit from this program would require additional work. So I actually did think it was specific to that population for that reason, and it would take additional work. But that's something I would want to see in public policy, see that be uplifted and prioritized for that reason. So I think that more broadly, there can be value in conversation around this, but I think they're two separate issues in my mind. So I guess I was surprised by how the bill has changed, or certainly from the public hearing, the conversation about what's being prioritized and why. Although I appreciate your point about there can be broader needs, I did think actually that it was to get at that population explicitly for that reason of it's really complex, and there's a bunch of different issues that go into it.
Well, there's two premises of that I just want to point out may or may not be accurate. One premise is that all consumers will benefit by shifting to time of use, and they may not. So we would want to be quite careful about going to all these lengths to recommend people to change their rate that they're on, only to discover that they end up paying more. We don't want that. So we would want to be careful about that. The other is that we at Efficiency Maine, the premise that we don't go to extra lengths to serve low-income customers, and I just categorically reject that premise. Every day, we are going much further and working much harder to reach the low-income customers in this state than any of the other customer groups. So I don't know what I can do to convince you that that's the case, but I assure you that it is true, and I can make that case if need be.
Question, one more follow-up, Representative Wong.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. It looks like this bill, though, is doing something much broader. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing from you that your perspective is that there may be a greater impact you're able to make targeting a much broader population. And my concern there is I thought you were getting at how to reach those, because that had been my original concern why I opposed the last variation of the bill, because I think there's many who will not benefit from this and maybe perhaps ought not had resources dedicated to advertising or educating, in part, God forbid that were the outcome, that it was not a net benefit. So I had thought that was the direction we were moving in, to focus on that population for that reason. But it sounds like your thought is you want to make the greatest broad impact, which would be a different goal as far as I understand.
I don't think the two goals are mutually exclusive. I don't know why they have to be mutually exclusive. I think we can try to maximize savings across all customers who can take advantage of this and give extra emphasis to reaching those customers who are harder to reach, which would be our intention. And that's what we usually do when left to our own devices. So I would intend to do that again here.
Additional questions, Representative Foster, then Representative Frente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Stoddard, for being here. With a little less than 5 weeks to go, my mind's wandering a bit at times, but I want to go back 2 weeks ago from now, when I voted on this bill that we're now discussing, that's been changed a little bit. As I recall, and I'd like to just have you update me if I'm wrong, you told us at that time that this program is something that Efficiency Maine Trust has been looking at, that you have a hierarchy of items that you're working on, that you have a certain amount of funding and a certain amount of bodies that can do this work, and that you would prioritize those that were of the highest, I guess if I was use the term low hanging fruit, those are that of the highest value, for not only for your group, but for ratepayers and for those who are dependent on electricity in the state of Maine. So I'm wondering, has any of that changed in the last 2 weeks?
I don't believe that it changes. I don't believe that I would change my answer that I gave to you before. It is the case, and I want to be careful in how in the use of the word prioritize, because in answering Representative Warren's question, we're talking about prioritizing certain customer groups. In my response to your question, I believe we were talking about prioritizing initiatives, different approaches, strategies, whatever. And it is still the case that when we're starting something relatively new, we may start out with what we think are the highest priorities, the best, maybe the easiest to start with, or the ones that are going to have the biggest savings opportunity. And that's what we did with the 4 initiatives that we're currently running as part of our demand management suite of programs. This one has always been on the list as a, let's see when we're ready to get to it and when we think we have something figured out to do. So I still would have done it in this sequence, where this one would have come later because it's got more complexity to it and it's smaller savings, but when aggregated across a much bigger group, it could be a pretty sizable savings. But on an individual basis, it's a little bit harder of a sale to make. The fact that the utilities have this rate just sitting there is a really easy thing to help people try and take advantage of. So that does make it a little more attractive now, something that we can be helpful with.
Follow-up, Representative Foster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with, let's just say, for instance, this committee, who is very knowledgeable on all of this, you were to come to us and say, here's what we have for a program, would you be interested? And we say, well, sure. And we might find out that we would all benefit financially from that. And we might suggest that you need to go find another group and make them aware of this and take advantage of it. And you might find out that, as you just stated, they may not find out that it was a financially of an advantage to them. Is that something you would consider as you go about this program, whether you had this directive or not, in that where can we best find the financial advantage for the ratepayers, while at the same time leading us to a point where we are lowering peak demand, benefiting all, if not, or most, if not all ratepayers. Would that be part of the program that you would have designed yourselves at the Efficiency Main Drive?
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Are you asking me if without legislative directive, we would have only gone to the lowest hanging fruit? Or are you asking whether we would have naturally also included provisions to make sure we were reaching people who are harder to reach for these kinds of, and include their participation?
Thank you for that question. What I meant to ask is, I assume you would look at all ratepayers in the residential class, let's say. And you would look at working with the utilities and working with the PUC and maybe even the public advocate, trying to find out who will benefit most from this, because that's where we want to go first. And that may be low income people who are not paying as much for electricity as I am now, but because of their situation, they would benefit more than I would. So, but you would look at that, I would assume, and that's my question. Would you look at that amongst all ratepayers?
Certainly.
And then go for lowest hanging fruit, whatever you want
Yeah,
to call it.
certainly we would. Yeah. Thank you for helping me through that.
Representative Rente?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, since this now sets up the demand management program, and it's
I'm sorry, did you say that it sets up the demand management program?
the demand response program. Since this sets that up, and one of the things that could be included in the collection of things you do under the program is this outreach for time of use rates more broadly than what the original bill said. If the outreach program is one of a variety of demand response programs, why not just have section 1 and section 4 on the presumption that this outreach program, like the other programs, is just a discretion of Efficiency Maine to go pursue?
I'm not sure I have a great response to that. I think part of the answer is seen in the colloquy between myself and Representative Warren, where, it's understandable that the legislature would want to send the signal that they don't want us to just cherry pick the biggest savings with the fewest number of transactions, but to be more inclusive. So that's, I think, a valuable signal. And then I think the other explanation maybe is that I think the drafters of this, bringing this bill back, were trying to do as little wording from the original as possible, and that had been in the original as a sort of a directive of what the pilot would be focusing on. So I think it was meant to be largely illustrative and also to demonstrate that there is something tangible that really could deliver savings that would be accessible to lots and lots of Mainers when everyone's trying to help make electricity more affordable. So I think that's why it's in there. I agree that it could probably live without it, but I don't think it hurts anything to have it in there.
Representative Kessin, did you have a question for Representative Stoddard or something? Or Director Stoddard? Does anyone else have any questions for Director Stoddard? Representative Wadsworth? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for being here, Mike. So why would, you just said it's, demand response is complex. You have limited staff. Why wouldn't we want to start with a pilot program on this?
Well, as you know, I think I supported the idea of a pilot program, and I don't think that would be a bad idea. I also recognize that we're in a curious moment that doesn't happen all that often, where we've actually been doing quite a lot of homework and studying this opportunity and studying how other states have approached this opportunity. And the more we get into it, the more we start to realize like this is doable, and we know how we have a good idea of how we would start, and we have a greater degree of confidence that it could be effective, especially since we now have these TOU rates available at the utilities. So we have something to help push people towards that would be appealing to them and offer them potential financial savings if it's the right fit for their household. So I'm not uncomfortable taking a little bit of a bigger leap. It is, however, the reason that I asked that since it's not framed as a pilot anymore, that I requested that there be a sentence added to say this will end in 2 years unless it is extended through the triennial plan process, so that there'll be some kind of an off-ramp if we get into it and we discover this didn't work out as well as we had hoped it would. We don't want to have this law hanging out there saying you got to do it anyway.
Thank you.
Other questions for Director Stoddard? You had another follow-up, Representative Foster?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Stoddard, on another note, I'm wondering how many programs does Efficiency Maine Trust, or have you had, that the Natural Resources Council of Maine has designed for you?
0.
Thank you.
Other questions for Director Stoddard? And my understanding, Director Stoddard, is they did not design this for you. Is that correct? That you designed this? That
It is correct that the elements of a program design that are in here were introduced by Efficiency Maine.
Thank you. Other questions for Director Stoddard? Seeing none, thank you for your time. I'm sorry to follow up Representative Kessler and then Senator Lawrence, who can also introduce yourself. Sorry, sir. Introduce yourself.
I'm
First.
Senator Mark Lawrence from Southern New York County, Representative Kessler. I represent the towns of South Berwick, Elliott, Kittery, and Gunsford in New York. I don't
Let's
think we've
give it
ever
one
met
opportunity.
before.
Yes, and but well, he actually wanted to speak, but Senator Harrington, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon. Senator Matt Harrington, represent 4 towns in York County.
So next to comment, Representative Kessler and then Senator.
Okay. So I think that this is an improvement from the bill that I had originally voted on. I feel that we need to really move ahead much quicker than the original bill had contemplated. And I think that Efficiency Maine has an excellent track record of implementing programs that have actually been doing the work of reducing costs for everybody in the state of Maine. They're very well equipped to do a program like this. And I'm really excited by all of the changes, checking all of the boxes, at least in my mind, of the concerns that were brought by other folks. And so I would be absolutely enthusiastic to motion ought to pass as amended.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Senator Lawrence?
I would like to second Representative Kessler's motion.
Right, we have a motion on the floor. Senator Lawrence, did you have additional comments? You were next to have your hand
No,
raised.
I wanted to make the motion, but he scooped it.
Oh, there we go. Representative Warren, comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask those that are on the motion, how do you understand the section 3? It appeared to me that the sponsor had an impression that the 3 categories were combined and were connected to who could, achieve the best outcome cost-wise for that population. But it seems like the way it's written, it would be those 3 groups, so like either or, as separate identities or categories. Could I just get your confirmation?
To the comments to Representative Kessler first.
I know we have comma trauma with Efficiency Maine, if y'all remember that back in the day. So my impression is that it is looking at all 3 of these groups that as separate groups. Yeah. So, but whatever we need to do to place the commas in the right places, so that's absolutely.
Senator Lawrence, do you have? any
I
thoughts?
concur with Representative Kessler.
Representative Warren, did you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm gonna land on this, so I'll step out, but I understand it looks like we're gonna vote on this today, so.
Okay. Well, if, would a caucus be helpful for, most people just saw this, I know. So, I will request a quick caucus for sure, but we can continue the discussion until we caucus, if that's okay. Representative Rente was next and then Representative Foster.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I can support this now because one of the concerns I had with the earlier program was I thought it might have very limited value in terms of a narrowly focused program on a single segment of customers. In terms of an educational outreach program. And think it's far more useful for Efficiency Maine to have the discretion to design something that yields the most results, or as much results as possible. So, I'm inclined to support this one. Thanks.
Thank you for the comment. Representative Foster, comment or question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just am curious, with the changes made, if the utilities, see that this is going to be of some cost to ratepayers to carry out what this requirement would be for them.
I see representatives from CMP here. Would they like to comment? I do not see anybody from Versant at the moment. Would the representatives from CMP like to come forward to the rostrum? Welcome. Please introduce yourself, Mr. Neal.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Craig Nell, Central Maine Power Company. Regarding your question about cost to ratepayers, so we do think that there probably is some cost to ratepayers that would be recoverable from the outreach that the utilities would collaborate with the trust on and the assistance provided in Section 4. But we don't expect that to be major.
Additional questions for CMP while they are here? Okay, thank you for your participation. Other comments or questions before we caucus? Representative Foster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would agree with Representative Kessler. I think this is a good area for Efficiency Maine Trust to delve into. However, I have not had my mind changed that that's not something they can already do without this legislation. And at this late date, I probably will have to change my vote. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments before we briefly caucus? Seeing none, we will be at ease. Thank you. Got my phone in there. Okay. Rep Foster's, Rep Wadsworth coming back. For those who are coming back, are they here? Okay. Okay to proceed? Okay, we are coming back. Sorry, my mic was on. Representative Kessler.
After our caucus, I'd like to rescind my motion and just make a slight tweak.
You can make a friendly amendment to the motion you already had.
Friendly
Yes.
amendment? Okay, I don't have to do that then. So just to make sure that we are prioritizing outreach to low-income electricity customers, as well as renters and customers having the greatest potential for peak demand electricity usage reductions. That particular change in section 3, just want to make that clear as day, that we want to prioritize outreach to those 3 buckets of customers.
And that had been seconded by Senator Lawrence.
I'll accept that.
Friendly amendment. Okay. Lindsay?
So can I just clarify, is this prioritizing outreach to all 3 of these groups? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So it said that the outreach and the way I heard it was that the outreach and education of teachers only to prioritize outreach to low. Jeez. Thank you. What I heard you just say, and I'm reading it back for Lindsay, based on the sheet we have, is under section 3, that the outreach and education must be designed to prioritize outreach to low-income electricity customers, comma, as well as renters and customers having the greatest potential, blah, blah, blah. Is that correct?
That was one. Yep.
Representative Warren?
I thought it was going to be prioritized to low income electricity customers.
I
as
agree.
the-
That was my
Yeah,
thought.
yeah. And then so
But-
but it's going to, but the outreach and education will be designed to reach also renters and customers having the greatest potential.
So
for
2
peak
different
demand.
things. Yep.
Yeah. But the priority is on the
Okay.
low income electricity customers.
Okay. Does that make sense, Lindsay?
So just to confirm, so the education outreach has to be designed to reach renters and customers having the greatest, I think, potential for reduction in energy usage and prioritize low-income electricity customers. Outreach to those. Yep.
All right. So those that made the motion, as we're trying to clarify, yes, okay, that's good. Okay. So further discussion of LD 2040. We have a motion on the floor. Representative Warren.
I just want to thank the sponsor for her great work and to all the great organizations that were part of working through this, and obviously to the trust for the great work that they do. Thank you.
Okay, from the gallery, just a note that Senator Grahowski, who is now back chairing tax, also worked very, very hard. Okay, further discussion, or are we ready for a vote? Seeing none, Lynn, please come on. The motion on the floor is ought to pass as amended.
Okay, beginning with Representative Runte.
Yes.
Representative Runte votes yes. Representative McIntyre.
No.
Representative McIntyre votes no. Representative Foster.
No.
Representative Foster votes no. Representative Kessler.
Yes.
Representative Kessler votes yes. Representative Sachs.
Still yes.
Representative Sachs votes yes. Senator Lawrence.
Yes.
Senator Lawrence votes yes. Senator Harrington.
No.
Senator Harrington votes no. Representative Warren.
Yes.
Representative Warren votes yes. Representative Paul.
No.
Representative Paul votes no. Representative Webb.
Yes.
Representative Webb votes yes. Representative Wadsworth.
No.
Representative Wadsworth votes no. So we have 6 in favor, 5 opposed with 2 absent. Yes.
And they, of course, can put in their votes later. For those, so the motion prevails, ought to pass as amended. For those on the minority report, what is your report, please? Ought not to pass. Is that unanimous among those who voted against the report? Okay, so we are ending the work session on 2140 with my thanks to the committee and the sponsor. Lindsay, do we have any other information or business before us.
That is it for today. I did want to ask for those on the majority report, if I have any questions in drafting, are you comfortable with me reaching out to the trust?
I am, as everyone else is as well. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So seeing no other business, we will be adjourned until Tuesday. Please watch your emails for schedules. Thanks. Thanks, committee.